Hey guys, the Airsoft Tech here. Today we're going to be going over a 5-minute tech tip on battery space on the Krytac Kryst Vector. Now, I know I haven't made a whole lot of videos recently or consistently, and that's just really because I'm in college and I go back and forth between a lot of stuff going on in my life right now, but I did like to crank out some videos, and since it is spring break, I wanted to crank out a video on my Vector. So, we're going to be talking about battery space today, and as a lot of you guys probably know, battery space in this gun is incredibly limited, but I found a battery that works just perfectly. So I'd like to share that with you guys today. So if you're into teching, you understand that battery space is very important, or more or less your battery is very important. If you're going to be running any type of high performance build, whether it's high FPS, high RPS, or a mixture of both, you really need to have a good battery to power your whole system so you don't starve your motor. So with this gun, you have very, very, very limited battery space, and that's an understatement of the century when it comes down to AEGs. A lot of guns we can make do with what we have. So with like an M4, you can run a full stock and jam a pretty decent sized battery in there, or you can run a battery pouch on the side. Same thing with an MP5, same thing with G3s, and the list goes on with like AKs and the such. But with the Krytac Vector, it gets a little bit harder. You'd have to really work with your wires to run an external setup here. You could run some through the back, Dremel a hole, you could run them through the bottom here and up. There are things you could do, but I personally don't like doing that. I really like to have my gun look like a gun. I don't like to have an external battery pouch on it. I don't like to have all the wires running everywhere, so I like to make it look as sleek as possible. And I'm also tech, so that becomes an issue when I want to run a gun as best as I can, feed my motor as best as I can, yet maintain that realistic look. So I found a battery that works just fine, and I found a way to make that battery fit. So I'll show you guys that battery now, and I'll show you what I did to make it fit. So as you can see here, I have an assortment of batteries in front of me, and I'll run down the list of them and what they can be used for, and why you want to have a good battery, even on guns like the Krytac Vector, whether it's stock or upgraded or whatever. So the top battery here, this is my 4.5 amp 4590C discharge 11.1 volt LiPo by Nanotech. This thing powered my DSG and it did great. My DSG motor hardly ever got hot. The RPS was really awesome. It was a really great build, and this battery made it happen. So optimally, I'd love to run this battery on the Krytac Vector, but I mean, this battery is massive. There's just no way I'm putting that on my Vector without running a pouch, and even then I wouldn't want to run a pouch. As reasons explained before, I'm not a big fan of battery pouches. And then these two batteries right here are, I think they are 15 to 25C, 2 amp, 11.1 volt batteries each. I use these batteries in my M16. It really powers the build well. The motor doesn't get super hot. RPS is fine, but really what I'm going for is trigger response in those builds. These work fine because my build is not pulling a ton of energy. It's a really efficient build just for long range. And then this is one of my 7.4 volt LiPos. I use this in my P90 because my P90 doesn't have a MOSFET, so. But even with really high discharge and powerful 7.4 volt LiPos, you can get some pretty wicked arcing. But I haven't had too much issue with this, so this is nice. But this doesn't even fit in my Krytac Vector. It's much longer than this battery, just long enough to where it's not going to fit. And then this little tiny battery, I can't really read it at this distance that I'm viewing it, but this is for my AEP, my SEMA AEP. It functions just fine for what it's trying to do with the AEP. But if you try to run this on like a full-size AEG, you'd have a lot of issues. Probably it not being able to even pull back the spring. But this battery right here, it's my 1.5 amp hour 20 to 40C discharge 11.1 volt LiPo battery. And this battery fits near perfectly into my Vector. So I'm going to show you how it fits and this little thing here I did to make it fit. So as you can see, the battery space here is very, very tiny. It is ridiculous. But I mean, it's the best thing you're gonna do for this gun. So as you can see, this battery slides in perfectly. It's not tight, but it fits in nice and snug. And it goes in pretty far. And then once it goes in, you just plug up these two DIN connectors and you close it up and it fits just fine. So I'm gonna take it out though and show you guys. So typically this type of battery comes pretty long. These two are pretty brand new. They look really beat up because I'm not very caring to my equipment, some of it. But you can see it comes pretty drawn out. So cut it down to appropriate size and it fits just fine. I'll leave a link to this battery below. So if you guys are running the Krytac Vector and you want an 11.1 volt, the biggest one that can possibly fit in the grip, this is what you can get right here. Alright, so there you go. a 11.1 volt LiPo that fits into the Krytac battery space perfectly, no wasted space, biggest battery you could possibly fit in this gun. Okay, so this battery fits pretty well into the Krytac Vector, we've established that. But if you're going to run anything really, really fast, anything really, really stressful on the Vector, you really don't want to use a battery that I'm using currently in this gun. And the reason being is if you do end up using a battery that needs to feed the gun with a lot of energy, the battery will swell up, and that battery that you just jammed in here that fits just perfectly, it'll swell up just enough to where you can't actually pull it out. Or maybe it'll swell up and actually cause a fire. But this battery works just fine for the setup that I'm running. It's not a ridiculously fast setup. Maybe it's a little too much for the battery, but it's not going to completely destroy the battery oh so quick. I do think I'm going to switch out the setup in the future. I think I'm going to go for a 28 TPA, 12 to 1 or 13 to 1 gears to get a really, really snappy, predictable trigger response with a decent rate of fire of around 20 to 22 rounds per second. Just remember though, if you are going to do something like a DSG in this gun, you really need to look into other battery options as opposed to the one I showed in this video. So of course, I wouldn't let you guys hang in like that. I'm going to show you what this build sounds like on the battery that's currently installed. So on semi, that's semi, 2-round burst. With this type of battery and this type of setup, it's probably going to be more like 3 to 4 round burst. So that's probably about 3-round burst. I honestly can't distinguish how many that is. It sounds to me like 3. And full auto. So there you have it. This build is probably even too much on this battery. As you heard, you could probably hear the full auto dip a little bit. It was around 30, 35 rounds a second, and then it dipped 2 or 3, and you could hear that dip. And that decrease in RPS is indicative of a battery that can't handle this kind of type of setup. But I'm being as careful as I can with this build, and like I said, I'm probably going to swap out the gears and the motor setup for a little bit more efficient setup for the battery space I'm working with. Alright, so there you guys have it. There's a 5-minute tech tip on the Krytac Crisp Vector battery space. Here pretty soon you guys should be seeing some more videos on my channel over the Krytac Crisp Vector. I know you guys know that I have this gun because it's been in one of my thumbnails, so you guys are probably looking forward to some videos I'd make on it. But this is the best I can do with the time that I have right now. I will be making some videos pretty soon over it, so keep an eye out for those on my channel. I'll probably end up doing a that build video that I talked about to this gun earlier. I'll turn that into a video for this gun. I may do a takedown video, a disassembly, reassembly. I may do a review, but since it's not stock anymore, kind of don't feel very good about making a review on a gun that is no longer stock and hasn't been stock ever since I got it. So yeah. I'll see you guys in the next video of whatever the heck I do. Until then, stay tuned, techs.